So listen, Derbyites, we've just heard Bruce Willis and Mary Louise Parker announce the Tony nominations. Oh, and just one mystery solved. The reason Bruce Willis was announcing is because he's going to be on Broadway next year in a stage version of Misery, which I have a feeling might be the way most critics describe an evening with Bruce Willis. But we're sitting here with two of our just top-notch Theater Forum posters, David Buchanan, also known as Piano Man, and Sam Eckmann, who's got the very original screen name of Sam Eckmann in the forums. So, you know, we all predicted those top 8 races, and Sam and I think we did really well. Sam, don't you?
Yeah,
86%.
I would say so.
As David pointed out to us, he got 31 out of 35, which gives him 91%. So we're going to give David the first word, maybe not the last word, but the first word. So David, what were you sort of happiest to see nominated today? What was something where you sort of went, oh, good?
One of the nominations that I didn't get right, but was thrilled to have not predicted, was Disgraced. I was really happy to see that remembered in the Best Play race. It did win the Pulitzer last year, so it was not terribly surprising, but it closed back in March, and I thought that maybe since there was a whole slew of new plays coming in the spring, it would have gotten lost in the shuffle, but I was really happy to see that remembered. So that was maybe one that I was wrong about, but very happy that I was wrong about.
And what about you, Sam? Did you have Disgraced in your top 4?
No, I thought if there was a tie for the 5th, then Disgrace would get in, but I had the audience at number 4,
yes,
which
yeah,
I was never sure about, and I'm mad that I went along with everyone.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, actually, so did I. Now I'm going to blame you two. What's interesting about the tie business, I was doing a little bit of digging into that. So there are the way the Tony nominations are determined, there's 50 people on a committee that commit to going to see every show throughout the year. They have to disqualify themselves in certain races if they have an interest in that race with a producer as an interest or anything. And it's a weighted ballot, and my understanding is if there was a 5th nominee in play revival, or musical that came within 3 votes of number 4, it would have been nominated.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, okay, listen, I'm telling you guys, I was so thrilled to discover this, I should have just asked you two. Okay, so, anyway, and the musical revival genre didn't have enough potential nominees to warrant that rule. So it's interesting, because last year...
It could have had a 4th.
Yeah.
It could have had a 4th, yeah.
Okay. Last year, it was Best Play, went up to 5, but the others didn't. So why do you think that, whether the audience, we all thought it was going to get nominated, why do you think it didn't manage to get in there?
I think it's mostly going to be remembered as a great star vehicle for Helen Mirren, and I think it got a featured actor nomination too, and I think McCabe is the individual who was nominated, and he received great notices. Yeah. But I think the strength of the performances kind of overshadowed the strength of the play overall, and maybe we should have been a little bit more discerning in picking that for that reason.
Yeah, it was always singled out for performances rather than the play itself. People did, right. In all of its reviews, they kind of had issues with the actual script itself.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting what David said about these shows that are shuttered and whether they'll be remembered or not. And you know, because Tony, it's happening only a few weeks later, but they more than likely saw it at the very beginning of its run. And I guess with a lot of commercial productions, they've got to get in there right away because it might be closed. I mean, look at the Heidi Chronicles. You know, that's already posted a closing notice.
And that, by the way, I was surprised to not see nominated in Revival in place of This Is Our Youth, which closed a long time ago.
Right. Both categories in plays have a nominee that got in with only that as its nomination. Disgraced and This Is Our Youth have no other nominations. But somehow managed the top award.
Yeah, because I know, I mean, both of you and a few other people in the forums were sort of chiding us, oh, you need to have this person in or that person in, and I think one of you was pointing out, you know, we were missing some of the actors from This Is Our Youth. And, you know, the funny thing about the Tonys is they have several committees. They've got that nominating committee, and then they've also got the administration committee that decides category placement.
Right.
And what's interesting is, I guess the rule still applies of if you're billed above the title, you're deemed to be a star, and below the title, you're featured, unless you petition the committee and they decide otherwise. And I guess I think back to years ago. I've been around a lot longer than you two, but I wasn't there then. But you know, Dick Van Dyke won featured actor for Bye Bye Birdie. He was billed below the title. There's a fellow you would know from Happy Days, maybe, called Tom Bosley, who played Mr. Cunningham. He won featured actor for playing the title role in a musical called Fiorello, you know, because he was billed below the title. So that's what's sort of interesting is it's hard sometimes because we don't know until the committee rules. Like a woman that got into Best Actress in a Musical, Beth Malone, we didn't know until last Friday that she was going to be considered in that category.
And Judy Kuhn for Fun Home 2, I think, was billed above the title and should have been in the lead race, but was smartly petitioned down to featured, where she fortunately received a nomination.
Right. No, so we sort of asked David about things he was happy to see. What about you, Sam? Was there anything that you kind of were delighted to see get nominated?
Well, just on a personal note, I was really excited, speaking of Fun Home, for Emily Skeggs. We went to college together, and she was the last name called of the nomination morning. So I woke up some people who were still in bed, I think, when I was really excited. Because it's hard to get the Fun Home ladies have 3 nominations in one category, which is not an easy thing to do.
Right.
Yeah, that actually was one of my points to discuss with us is, do we think that the 3 nominations in that category for Fun Home are going to cancel out their chances of taking home a featured prize and maybe give Victoria Clark or Ruthie Ann Miles the award, or is there one of those 3 Fun Home women who are going to just run away with the race?
Oh, gosh.
Oh, I think one of them will take it.
Which one?
We've seen in the past that if you have, like, 12th Night last year had 3 nominees, and Mark Rylance sort of easily took that.
That's a good example.
A Raisin in the Sun, Sophie Okonedo beat out her co-star Anika Nani Rose. So often I think when a loved show has multiple nominees, they sort of unite behind one of them.
Right. Well, who's it going to be?
I want to say Sydney Lucas. She has an incredible song in there.
I want to say Sydney Lucas too. I hope it's her.
I think she can take it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's going to be interesting. And we'll certainly do more of these and include some other people. So start posting in the forums so we come calling. And give these 2 a run for their money. I know there was actually another fellow I invited today, Ted Stevenson, who you would know from our Oscar song contests, but he was unfortunately busy. Another actor like Sam. So David and I are civilians, but real theater fans. So I was surprised. I wasn't surprised how well American in Paris did. I just thought I was surprised that Something Rotten didn't do as equally well, if that makes any sense. That Something Rotten got 9 nominations, but both American in Paris and Fun Home got 12. Do you think that matters for Best Musical, Sam? Do you think it matters whether or not you have the most nominations to win?
Not necessarily. I think, something like Fun Home actually surprised where that's something like a more intimate musical, which wasn't guaranteed a lot of design awards, whereas An American in Paris really took over the design categories.
Right.
So I don't think necessarily it matters how many you have. It certainly helps. But I think Something Rotten has the original score, which is the most important factor of all, which could push it ahead of American Paris.
Mm-hmm. And David, I mean, we speculate. You two seem to know the rules quite well about it, but the composition of the voters now, it shifts from those 50 people that are on the committee to upwards of close to 900.
Right.
We always think that the road producers are the biggest block and therefore will dictate. So you kind of look at Something Rotten or you look at An American in Paris and you think, well, if I'm programming my theater in Omaha, those are the shows that are going to fill seats. I'm not sure Fun Home. So which if you had to And we're going to open the prediction center as soon as we finish this chat. We're going to open up the prediction center. So I'm putting you on the spot. If you had to predict your best musical winner right now at 11:20, what would it be?
I still am going to stick with Fun Home, I think. Okay. I think it's just I think it has just everything in its favor. I do agree that I think American in Paris and Something Rotten are more appealing to a wider audience, and therefore maybe would tour better if we're thinking about, well, whatever show would tour best kind of has a slight slant. But I just think there are so many people within the industry with well wishes for Fun Home that I'd really have to be convinced otherwise that that's not going to win.
And what about you, Sam?
I would have to agree. Even though it's a much smaller scale musical, I think it just is absolutely dominating the conversation at this point. The other two would certainly have more mass appeal, but Fun Home is just so different and unique. It would have to take a lot to take that one down. And
I'm going to defer because I don't know. I mean, I think Something Rotten. Now it's interesting because if we think about musical acts, is it between the three men that are the leads in those respective shows? I mean, or is there one that stands out, Sam, for you?
Well, I would say at this point I would put Brian Darcy James in the lead. He's been working for a long time, has not yet won a Tony, despite being nominated, and this is sort of, we get to see him in a really outrageous musical comedy. He's known for a lot of dramatic work, and this is kind of a big showboating part for him. And Michael Cerveris, who's already won a Tony, maybe if he hadn't already won, there'd be more of a desire to reward him, but I think they'll finally want to give Brian Darcy James something.
And Michael Cerveris is the lead in Fun Home. And then there's Robert Fairchild, David, who's I guess from the New York City Ballet and come to Broadway and surprise people with his dance, with his whole performance. And I guess the surprise for me was Tony Yazbek being remembered for On the Town, given that it opened last fall, another very dance-heavy performance. Could you see... I'm going to use the word ingenue, but I mean Robert Fairchild sort of winning over a couple of those Broadway vets?
I really honestly can't see it going anywhere other than Cerveris or DRC James, and I'm going to have Cerveris in my first place. So Sam and I are not necessarily aligned on this one. I don't know. I think Yazbek and maybe Fairchild appeal to the same demographic. They're both very heavy dance shows, so I don't know if there would necessarily be vote splitting in that sense, that if you want to award somebody for, a dance-heavy performance, you go to one of those two, and maybe they split that vote. But yeah, I think the only person who may be not in the conversation at this point in time is Watanabe, for a performance that I was actually surprised he was nominated for, based on some of the reviews. Certainly, some think it's well-deserved. I just was surprised to see him in there.
I was too. Sam, were you surprised by that?
Yeah, the best actor category really screwed me up in predictions. Because I had Rob McClure, who I think should have been in there. I would put him in over Watanabe. But I was surprised. He had not a lot of great notices, but it was a really stacked category, and The King and I is obviously going to clean up pretty well in the awards, so I think he got swept in.
Yeah, he wrote in on Kelly O'Hara's big sweeping gown. But that's what's interesting about the King and I, the love for The King and I, and that brings, I've got to talk about Best Musical Actress. And before you were talking about Brian Darcy James, he hasn't won a Tony. He's only been nominated twice. I mean, you've got Kelly O'Hara, 5-time Tony nominee, and the fact that she didn't win last year for Bridges and Madison Counties, I'm only barely recovering from that now. I mean, it was, I thought, a stunning performance in a show that should still be running. I mean, it was so beyond what the other women were doing. And I think even at the time she knew that Jessie Mueller was going to win for playing Carole King in Beautiful. And so now this year, Kelly O'Hara gets nominated for the 6th time. I mean, and ironically, you guys are theater awards nuts. Are you Oscar awards nuts too, and Emmys and Grammys, or so?
With the Oscars.
Okay, so she's playing a part that Deborah Kerr played on screen and got one of her 6 Oscar nominations. Deborah Kerr never won an Oscar. They gave her an honorary one. Glenn Close did, back in the 90s. But so Kelly O'Hara, is she going to win this year? David?
This is unfortunately, when they announced that she was going to be playing this role, everybody said finally the perfect role to win her the Tony. And then this season just comes in and brings a stellar performance from Chenoweth and a potential swan song from Chita Rivera, and it's just, I don't know if it's her time. It's just such a hard. I really can't choose between those 3 at this point in time. It's going to be a nail biter until that envelope is opened, I think.
And Sam, what?
Yeah, I'm nervous for her yet again. Every time she's nominated, she comes down to this huge battle, where she's always in a close second, I feel. But I think she probably was cursing the gods when Kristen Chenoweth got the review she got, because Kristen Chenoweth is just like a supernova in the 20th century, devouring everything in her path. She could absolutely take it.
Right, but what's interesting is she was out sick on the weekend, Kristen Chenoweth. I mean, if it turns, I think Peter Gallagher being out as much as he was before and delaying the opening of the show might have cost him a nomination. I mean, I know Kristen Chenoweth is this force of nature, and you don't really notice Peter Gallagher as much as John Cullum, who won, a Tony in the original. It should be a tennis match, and it feels a little lopsided this time around. But Chita Rivera, yeah. So The Visit. Now I had predicted that was going to get nominated for Best Musical. I was kind of proud of myself for having figured that one out. So do you think it's interesting? The Tonys, like Chita Rivera, it took her. She was nominated back then for Bye Bye Birdie, and I think for West Side Story, and it took them until the 80s when she did this disastrous Kander and Ebb musical called The Rink with this disaster called Liza Minnelli, and she got a Tony just as a hardship, for having suffered through that, and then she won again for Kiss of the Spider Woman. So. But do you think that the Tony voters are sentimental? I mean, do you think that they would give it to her just because she's 82?
I don't know if it's her age that's the factor, but I saw The Visit over the weekend, and it's a very dark show. I think it's going to be hard. It needed these Tony nominations to help it at the box office. But this show is just so historic in so many ways that it's Kander and Ebb's last collaboration coming to Broadway, and with Terrence McNally writing the book, and Chita owes a lot of her at least award success in her career to those collaborators. It just feels like this incredible labor of love to bring it to the stage, and a historic moment. So for those factors, and the fact that Chita's being coy as to, is this her last leading role in a musical? It certainly sounds like she wants to continue acting for as long as possible, and she's incredible on stage. But there's kind of this air of this might be the swan song role, at least on Broadway. That could tip some votes towards sentimentality towards her. I don't know if it would be enough to overcome those kind of more showy roles like Chenoweth, but she can definitely siphon some of her votes away.
So Sam, you're in showbiz. Is there any room for sentiment? I mean,
there's some, but if you remember a few years ago, we thought the Scottsboro Boys was also going to be the last Kander and Ebb musical, and they did not care. It was at all. They didn't get score or orchestrations or anything we thought it had a chance for. And the thing with The Visit is, it's like there are some people who are going to love it, and then the other side is just going to loathe it.
Yeah.
It is not for everyone. And the performance that she is giving is wonderful, but it's very subtle and nuanced. It is not. It does not abide by the rules of musical theater, where you have these huge production numbers and a big 11 o'clock number. So I think that might cost her in the end.
Well, it's interesting. A couple of sort of, because we're awards nuts. So you mentioned Scottsboro Boys, Candor and Ebb. That went 0 for 11, tying the dubious record set by Candor and Ebb when Steel Pier, featuring Kristen Chenoweth, went 0 for 11. And you talk about The Visit, and of course, who was supposed to have come in with that maybe a decade ago was Angela Lansbury.
Mm-hmm.
And her husband fell ill, and she didn't. And I think about Sentiment because I think when she was nominated for Deuce, she didn't win, you know, which would have given her a record. I mean, it took her until she did Blithe Spirit to win. So, and we're going to revisit. We're going to come back and in the weeks leading up to Tony's talk about the featured categories and the craft awards and all that. But I just want to turn it to the play side because I almost feel like we've got all these races, at least in the top tier, the musical side.
Right. But
over on the play side, it slightly feels like done deals. And now, am I wrong? I mean, Sam, what do you think? What would you predict is going to win Best Play?
Oh, Curious Incident's going to take it by a landslide, I think. Best Revival of a Play might have a race there, but I don't see anything beating Curious Incident. It's unlike anything else.
And that's this.
I don't know about that, guys. I think.
Yes, we do.
No, I'm not so sure. I think Hand to God overperformed in nominations today, and that received such raves. And I don't know. I just feel like as strong as Curious Incident is, and I think I'd still put that in first right now.
Curious Incident broke into the choreography award.
I know that was huge. That was actually a great surprise. But yeah, I think there's a little bit more of a race there than just stamping Curious Incident right now, which I'm glad about because Hand to God was great.
And Curious Incident, I mean, they're both very unusual plays.
Yes.
I mean, Curious Incident, an adaptation of a bestseller. It's about an autistic boy. The woman that did such a marvelous job staging Warhorse a few years ago did it. Mm-hmm. It's a real immersive experience. And Hand to God has been kicking around for a while, a couple of off-Broadway productions, and it's sort of guerrilla theater. And I was thrilled to see Stephen Boyer get nominated. The lead actor who plays is a puppeteer as well, for lack of a better word. It's a very interesting play, but I'm not quite sure when you look at the Tony Awards on TV and Radio City, and you see a lot of white hair, a lot of ladies who lunch that are voters. I'm not really sure it's their thing. But so, okay, we're saying that maybe it's not Curious Incident. What about Wolf Hall? I mean, did that not overperform too in terms of nominations? I mean, I put it in my headline. It was the nomination.
It did get a lot of nominations, but it sort of hasn't caught fire the way people thought it was going to be, this sort of big event. And they do like to reward epics, but it hasn't really caught the same word of mouth it did over in London.
Right, it's parts 1 and 2. I mean, it's a marathon. Do you think that it actually has been hurt by the television version airing at the same time on PBS with Mark Rylance, a 3-time Tony winner, including for 12th Night last year? Do you think that it's just sort of like, oh, I can just watch it on Sunday night? Do I need this? I don't know. I wonder, because I'm with you.
Something that is like 6 hours of theater, if you want to go to part 1, you probably want to see the end in part 2. You sort of want it to get like those rave reviews and this fiery word of mouth that it didn't quite get. People sort of said, yeah, it's good, but that's not going to make people go see 6 hours of material.
So David, really the nominations for the most part are the win for them. They get to tout that they've got the most nominations of any play.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a deserving nominee for sure, and I think the reviews were strong. So we were right to predict it. I just really don't see how the show can overcome its two chief competitors, unless Disgrace just pulls a surprise because it won the Pulitzer. But that's
okay. I think we're seeing a theme here. So now we're sort of saying those two lead races over on the musical side, really competitive.
Yeah.
If you're producing the Tony Awards, you're going to want to hold those till the end of the night because they're real cliffhangers. Let's just get Best Actress in a Play out of the way. Okay, so Helen Mirren playing Queen Elizabeth over the span of 60 years. She won the Oscar for playing her over the span of 60 hours in The Queen. Nobody's beaten her, right? I mean, this is her third Tony nomination. She's going to get a Tony to add to her Oscar, all those Emmys she's got. Do you not, David? I don't know. Do you not agree? It looked like you were slightly hesitant.
I agree she's a front runner. I don't know. I think we could see someone like Carey Mulligan win too. I'm totally. I think she's definitely the front runner. I'll still predict her, but I feel an inkling that you know the lack of nomination for the audience in Best Play has me wavering a little bit, just a little.
Okay, just listen, waver a little, but Sam, we need to write him, right? I mean,
yeah, well, because he's wrong. I mean, I would love to see Geneva Carr just surprise everyone and take it for hand to God because she's amazing. But it didn't get nominated for Best Play because it's the Helen Mirren show, and Helen Mirren's going to take it home.
Yeah. Well, and it'll be very interesting because in the next couple of weeks, Kristen Scott Thomas is opening in London. They're remounting it in London. It's going to be very interesting to see how it does there with another actress in the role. So it just and it's a wonder. I mean, it's a wonderful performance. I mean, in the blink of an eye, she takes you from the Queen in her 20s right up, and then suddenly she's the Queen in her 80s. I think it's a real. It certainly, I would say, if she wins, David, you're not going to be too disheartened, are you?
No, of course not. And I mean, I do think it's a foregone conclusion. Maybe I'm trying to create some suspense where there isn't any. But yeah, the category is full of really rich performances. So I think any of them could deservingly claim it. But it's going to be Mirren.
And then on the actor side, at Gold Derby. When we've been doing the Oscars, we've been guilty a couple of years of underestimating Bradley Cooper, not predicting him to be nominated, and he's had 3 consecutive Oscar nominations. Now, he spearheaded this production of Elephant Man. I mean, he did it up in Williamstown. He pushed for it. He made himself available. This is his dream role. He gets a Tony nomination. Is he going to win, Sam?
Well, what he has on his side is that it is easier for movie stars sometimes to win with the larger 900 electorate. And he does have the narrative of this is the part he's been actually working on since grad school, I believe. It's kind of, his career-defining performance, or he's wanted to turn it into that. But if anyone didn't see it when it was still on Broadway, it is closed now. I think they're going to go for either Stephen Boyer or Alex Sharp.
Yep.
They're really the 2 dominant performers in that category right now.
Stephen Boyer's in Hand of God, and Alex Sharp's the lead in Curious Incident. And I believe the man that did it in London won the Olivier in Curious Incident. I'll probably be wrong. Somebody will put that in the comments section. I know. I read those comments. I know. And then. We want to wrap it up, but how surprised were both of you about Finding Neverland getting completely shut out? David, didn't you think it was going to get a few craft nominations, maybe?
I knew it would not get into Best Musical. I was really confident to see it not be there. I thought that perhaps like Kelsey Grammer would sneak into featured actor. I thought it would pick up a few. So the fact that it didn't get anything was kind of surprising. But given the sentiment towards Weinstein and then also just the pans it received a few weeks ago, I'm really not terribly surprised that it didn't get anything.
And Sam?
Well, I was surprised not just about Finding Neverland, but that in terms of all the new musicals that came out this year, the nominees were only representative of 5 of them. The 4 Best Musical nominees and The Last Ship were the only ones to get anything, which is not often how it goes. Like even Spider-Man and Ghost got a couple craft nominations. So for Finding Neverland not to get, even a lighting design was pretty surprising to me. It was a small pool of people they went through.
Right.
And that goes to, I mean, they can't. It would be hard to do it any other way, and to have 50. I mean, 50. I think is when I've been doing this for a few years, the most I've ever seen on the nominating committee. But I think to your point, Sam, they must all be like-minded in that to not have a couple of outliers, as you said, to not have something for Finding Neverland, something. My one dream nomination, and it's one I sort of threw away. I was hoping Lisa Howard would have been nominated for It Should Have Been You.
I think she probably came close.
Yeah. There's an instance. Yeah. Oh, what's that, Sam?
I think once Beth Malone was deemed lead, I think Lisa Howard slipped out of the category.
Well, it's interesting because that was decided on the same day, and that's where Lisa Howard, who plays the frumpy daughter in It Should Have Been You, was billed above the title with the two mothers, Tyne Daly Harris, as well as the pretty bride, and she was the only one deemed to be lead, and the rest were down and featured. So I was tossing a coin, quite frankly, between Beth Malone and Lisa Howard. So
that's interesting. I was tossing a coin between her and Rebecca Cope for An American in Paris. Oh. I really didn't doubt that Beth Malone was going to get in for Fun Home.
Oh, okay. Well, see, so it's and obviously there was so much love for that. Well, it's going to be a lot of fun to talk to you guys and some other people in the forum. So comment on this. Tell us why we should be picking you to educate us, because you know what, these two did well, but there were lots of people that did as well as David, if not better, when you look at the score report. And certainly, I'm sorry, Sam, a ton of people that did better than us. So, but we can get redeemed. Because really, predicting the nominees, there were 8 categories, not that okay. But there's 24 categories at the Tony Awards, so we have a chance to rescue our reputation, Sam. As I just lost my voice. Okay. All right. Well, thanks, guys.